Okay, here we go.
Test, 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 test.
Roll music?
Let's roll it.
Welcome to the Unknown Morning Show.
It's the show where we explore radio,
Podcasting,
TV,
gear,
gearheads,
and making money with a hot mic and other stuff too.
This is the Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandy Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
In our conversation with our broadcasting buddy Rod Wayne, he's talked about his years abroad in New York, Dallas, East Texas, even going off the air. We asked Rod, after leaving Mix and Tyler, did he do freelance voiceovers? What was next, Rod?
Actually,
did you do some stuff on your own for a while?
Yeah, well, I was always doing voiceovers on the side, but
Right.
it was never enough to pay the bills because this is East Texas after all. That I left there, and it was funny because Path called me to come back. And I had gotten a phone call from their new executive director and said, well, I understand you used to be the volunteer coordinator here at Path. I said, yes, sir. He goes, did you enjoy it? I said, yeah, I had a great time. Just loved radio, had a calling for that. And he's like, well, would you like to come back? Well, at that point in time, I was unemployed because I had left radio. I went to work for a retirement community, and that was just a nightmare. I loved the senior citizens there. They were great. But again, most people leave jobs because of management, not because of the job. And I reached the point in life when I'm done, it's like I took my ball and I went home. Met some great people there, met some not so great folks. But so I was kind of unemployed for a while, and I got that call to go back to Path. I was like, yes, not just because I needed a job, because I enjoyed it. So I stayed there doing that for about 4+ more years. And then Chuck called me up one day, and he said, hey, I know you do voiceovers and stuff on the side. I'm doing this gig for an old dude named Eric Jontra for CMC Neptune, where I do these messages for games, for footballs and things and all that stuff in sports. I'm like, Chuck, Chuck.
I said, just fake it, man.
I said, what I know about sports will fit in a thimble and a very small thimble.
I said, it doesn't matter.
No. So I said, oh, I'll try. So he let them know. He gave me a script or whatever. I think I was calling my mom and dad who were heavily into sports. How do I say this? What did that mean? And so I did it, and they enjoyed it, but I didn't have the parameters of how they wanted those messages. So what happens? You go. They have a product called Game Time, and you'll hear it at any Tyler ISD school, Jacksonville ISD, UT Tyler, TJC, and it's like their own radio station. So it sounds like their radio station. They have little stingers and promos that run. They can sell commercials, and then they have their DJ-based messages that are the repeating messages that run all the time. And then there are DJs, which is what Chuck was doing, that comes in to talks about the game specifically. I had no idea really what they wanted. I don't think I had heard a live message before, which is what we call them. And so I went big. You talk about theatrical. And every 4 years, Jason Jontra, our operations director, likes to replay that for everybody just to hear what my first live message sounded. It was bad. It was loud and theatrical. He said, well, we just want you to tone it down a little. And by a little, I mean a lot. So I got it down. So it's just simple. It's like, hey, you're listening to the official station for Legacy High School Athletics and the home for Raiders football. This is Game Time. Thanks for coming out. So glad to have you with you as our Raiders take on the North Mesquite High School Stallions. Blah, blah, blah. Enjoy the game. Safe ride home. More tunes coming up on Game Time. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So I was like, yeah, I could do that. So I started doing that for about a year and a half. And I asked Eric Jontra out to lunch one day. I said, you've got to tell me more about your company. What? Because
it's innovative.
It's innovative. It's different. It's using my radio and voiceover skills, which I love.
It's a great product.
It is a great product.
Safe music.
Oh, well, that's the whole thing. It was like Sunny because it was family-friendly music. You'll never hear in the commercials or the music or anything any bad words or references to alcohol or anything bad. In fact, if they can't edit it down, they just don't play it. Currently, we have over 9,000 songs on a Do Not Play list. And that's just a sad statement of the kind of music they're putting out today. And that's a whole nother podcast, people. Whole nother conversation. Don't get me started. And so it was neat. I said, well, tell me, before I get these things to read them, where do they come from? How do we get them? And then once I record them, where they played. He told me more about it. I said, that sounds exciting. I said, well, when you guys get big enough and are taking on some people full time, I think I'd love to come work for you full time, because no matter what I do and no matter how much I love it, like a nonprofit working with Path, it's that broadcasting, performing side of me which will never go away, because that's how God built me. And I think you have to honor God by the talents He gave you. You don't hide it under a bushel.
Sure.
Under a bushel. So He said, yeah, well, tell me, what all you do. So I've told him everything I did in radio and voice work and all that stuff. He said, man, we just had a conversation with Reed Kerr. We all know Reed.
Yes.
And
Rocket.
And then Chad Lebo from, Texas and Kansas City. He's in Kansas City now. They were doing all the commercials and stuff on top of their jobs. And Chad is our music explorer. So he's our chief music explorer. He is the music guru. He is into music and he gets us the best music. He is on top of it. And so our music is fresh and good. But they couldn't do their jobs and do the commercials. So within a week later, he said he had a job offer. And he just said, how much do you need? I'm like, well, just match what I'm making. Like an idiot. I'm currently making $120,000 a year. I get a car, you pay for the gas. That's how it rolls. No, I didn't do that. I just wanted to do something I liked. So he took me on board, and it was great. And I think at that time we didn't even have benefits. I don't remember. They were very limited. But I tell you what, they have really taken great care of us since. Best move I ever made. That was 8 years ago. And
wow.
So
Time
I was with them a year and a half part-time, then, 8 years now full-time, and love it. So I'm the production manager. So I write and build the commercials, voice them, or I hand it out to voice talent because Mandy, you do voice work for me. Chuck, you've done voice work.
Yep.
Because Chuck and I worked together because he was the other production guy, and that's all we did was commercials and live messages.
Yeah.
We hawked everything from football, hockey, soccer, underwater basket weaving, you name it.
Whatever they said. We'll do it.
We did them for Splash Kingdom. You'd go to Splash Kingdom and you would hear Mandy, you'd hear Chuck, you'd hear me. In fact, we all did remotes. I still have pictures of us doing remotes at Splash Kingdom, not realizing that later on we were going to be the voices of Splash Kingdom.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yesterland Farm, you'll hear us there.
Yeah.
You hear us all around town, and it's a neat thing.
When we would have kids over at Splash Kingdom with us, I'd sit there and I'd go, is that me?
Well, in Schlitterbahn. I went to Schlitterbahn years ago and heard myself on the radio. I was like, whoa.
So I'm doing their repeater messages right now. In fact, I got to finish a Monday of how tall you have to be to ride this ride and how you can't weigh this much or over this. I'm like, well, I'm not going to Schlitterbahn then. Apparently they don't like me down there. But I had somebody come back and say it was the weirdest thing standing in line with my kid and hearing you the whole time going, I know that guy. And having the kid say, can you tell him to shut up? Because they're called repeater messages for a reason. 30 seconds after you hear it, I say it again. But that's funny. But at least people are listening. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love what I do. I get to work with a lot of the people I worked with in radio. I like to do voice work and for our commercials and things. Get to record things. The cool thing for me is any product that we have in Hawaii, I'm the voice for because I'm really good with accents and voices and dialects, so I can pronounce the Hawaiian names right. All the First Nations stuff that we get, Navajo or whatever, Rapo, I get to do those because I can go and learn how to say them correctly. I'm also the voice of Guantanamo Bay, Cuba.
What?
Oh.
Yes. Apparently, I found out my voice is how they tortured the prisoners.
God. That's a bad joke.
It's true. No.
That's a bad joke.
You hooked us big time.
We gave up waterboarding. We've got something worse. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Rod Wayne show. No.
Let me get the worm flavor out of my mouth. Thank you.
But it's for their pools and their activities. It's a naval base, and they do a lot of stuff with the families. And so that's neat. And then so in the military stuff, I get, having served in the Air Force, I do the military stuff because I know how to do the military time, and I understand the language for the most part.
That's amazing.
So it is neat.
Yeah.
And it's cool having your voice heard. I'm heard in Vancouver, BC, different parts of Canada, Cuba. We're going to say Cuba. I want me some cigars. Y'all send me some cigars, please. It's neat, to be heard in markets that, I never was at a radio station in, but my voice is still there.
And the best thing is, and I know this because I had a shared experience with you, is you get to work from home. Isn't that terrific? 5
years I have been working from my home studio, and that is the best thing ever.
Yeah?
It is incredible, yeah. It was. I found a dog on the side of the road, and I thought it was a dead dog. Don't ask me what made me get out and go check on a dead dog, but she was alive. And so I took her to the Tyler Emergency Animal Clinic, and it's not cheap, but it keeps them alive. She spent nearly a month in the vet, and I could not find somebody to take her. I did not want a dog. Did not want the mess, did not want the responsibility, their expense, but that was 5 years ago, and I've still got her, Golda.
Yes.
And she saved my life because with her breed, you have to walk her. So I started walking her daily, and I started losing weight. I'm like, oh, this is good. So then I said, let me get on keto. Everybody else is doing this keto diet. Lost tons of weight, just got healthier. Working from home, life is just better. So I'm blessed. I just thank God every day because I get to talk for a living and get paid for it, as my dad suggested. And so I honor my father with that. And I just get to have fun, set your schedule for the most part. As long as you get it done, they don't care what you're doing during the day. Just be available for a phone call if a person has a question.
I liked it when I had my year before I went back to KTBB, and I was working from home for a year. What I liked about it is, it's like you said, I could sit there and maybe do a lot of rough voiceover work at night, and the next day have like a cup of coffee at 6 in the morning and edit and smooth things out and get things going. I like that a lot.
It's huge. Yeah, once you start working from home, you don't ever want to go back in the office environment. I absolutely love it. But I still make myself get up every day, get dressed, make my bed, stick to that schedule. At 10 o'clock, my dog is in there letting me know. She'll just exhale like that. It's 10 o'clock. It's time for our first break.
There you go.
12 o'clock. It's time to go for our noon break. Take your lunch break.
So you don't get the cold nose. You get the exhale. Okay, I get it.
Well, and she'll also do that if it's 10:30 and I'm still sitting up in my recliner watching TV, because her bed is by the front couch in the living room. That's her room at night. We tried sleeping in the same room, but unfortunately we both snore. So she finally, I kid you not, she quit sleeping in her bed. She just went in the living room. I said, fine. So I moved her bed in there. That's her room now. But if I'm up there watching, if I'm watching TV at 10:30, she'll just kind of get up and look at me and go, I'm like, fine.
I'll go to bed.
Yeah. We have it at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
The slow walk between me and Rosanna.
What a blessing. But, working from home, but I'm constantly talking to coworkers. We do video calls. We're talking to each other on the phone. We're messaging. We have our own internal messaging, which is like chat rooms for everything. And I'm blessed to work with some amazing people. We've joked and called this company the Island of Misfit Toys, because it's former radio and TV people. And we have the best of the best. And we all come together and we bring in our experiences and our talent, and we give our clients, but we call them partners, because, we want you to be successful, and we will do whatever we can do that's in our wheelhouse. It may not be on the menu, but if you ask me to do something like do your on-hold voice messages, we'll do it because we can do it. You want me to do your radio commercial for you? We'll do it because we can do it. It may not be something we offer, it may not be what you're paying for, but we're glad to do it because we're partners. We want you to be successful. But that's the attitude, and we have amazing customer service. You will always get a live person when you call. We tried the dead people, but they're not very talkative. Always get a live person when you call. But we're nice to them, and it's great. And I forget the name of the scale where they rate companies by customer service ratings. We're like one of the top in the country.
Ooh, cool.
That's something to be proud of. But it's also just a very godly centered organization. We just have a passion for Christ, and we just love each other, and that's a neat thing. And the fact that the leadership cares about its people, it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It is a family. It truly is a family. So Eric Johnson put that together, and it's a cool thing.
It's always nice to be in a situation where everybody cares for each other, and in radio, to where there's actually people there. Mm-hmm. We were talking Meredith Dosser, who's our second in command. She's kind of like HR. Mm-hmm. One of our youngsters on the staff says, "Oh, it's Mom," but we were talking about how many people we have in there. We have 17 people in our organization, which is unheard of almost in modern radio. Yeah. And it's like I tell young kids, if you're going to get into broadcasting, look for family-owned businesses. That's about, that's where, Mandy, it's like you said, if you're going to get that first shot in the business, it's kind of like the only place you can go. You
can't get it anymore.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I started at Waller, which was family-owned. Mm-hmm. I mean,
absolutely.
2001.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I hit full-time radio anniversary was 2 days ago.
Oh, yeah.
2 doors down, 19 years.
Isn't that nuts?
Isn't that wild?
Time does fly.
Yeah.
People will approach me every now and then. They'll talk about radio. Well, what would it take to get you back in radio? And I would always tell Dave, I said, if I ever got a phone call, I said, hey, we want to put, it's now Jack FM. They do a great job. But of course, I'm partial to Sunny. But if they ever called me up and said, hey, we're putting the old Sunny back together, the old format where it would be now if it had continued. We want Dave back in the mornings. We want, Rhonda Parsons back in middays. Uh-huh. We want, Chris Burton or Delilah back on at night. And, you and the, Smooth Rabbit 5 and all that stuff. I'd probably do it, just for nostalgia. Mm-hmm. But I thought, yeah. And people say, well, what would you do to improve radio? Because it's just not good anymore. Even the listeners say it's not good. I said, go back to doing it live. Have real local personalities. Talk about things. Talk with the listeners on the air. Get involved. Get out and do remotes. Meet the people. Get involved and get connected. Because that was the one thing that made radio special. And it made it local. Let's keep it local. I don't want to hear people that are broadcasting from Chicago or LA or some other place. They have nothing in common with it. We have local flavor. You know? Lots of good local flavor. Let's hear that.
How many times, Rod, when you were doing a remote back in the day, you're doing a remote, listener comes up to you and they'll say something about your show, something about the word of the day, or, hey, I heard your mom do the word of the day. You know, and it always impressed upon me that you're listening, and you're listening hard.
Well, it's funny. People will come and go, oh, I listen to you all the time. I said, you're the other one. I knew there were two.
Right.
Or they go, I listen all the time. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm not responsible for
I would always tell listeners, and this was 30 years ago, and I would always say, you know you have options,
Yeah.
and I appreciate your listenership so much. The scary thing is today, I mean, you know, if I want to listen to music, you know, I can just punch up YouTube, and I realize that same for listeners.
There's like infinite options now.
There are.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you Spotify. What are all the other ones?
Apple
Amazon
Music,
Prime, Apple Music. You've got
Sirius
tons of
XM.
Sirius, yeah.
And they've
YouTube.
got their app now where they've got like all kinds of, I mean, they've got like probably 1,000 channels now.
I like Sirius. I got it for 3 months free with my
Yeah.
new truck a few years ago. And so I was checking out the different stations, but they still had DJs. I'm like, no, I'm not paying for that. And then I'll never forget, I got into the yacht rock radio music, which is great stuff from the 70s that I listened to as a kid. I loved it. But then they would interrupt it with this voiceover guy. And I'm not saying he wasn't talented, but it just took me out of the mood. You know, you're listening to yacht rock radio. Blah.
You mean Thurston Howell did
Yeah,
it?
that's exactly what it was. It was a Jim Backus impression. Not a bad one, but I don't want to hear
Oh,
that.
my
It
goodness.
takes
No,
me out of the
are you
moment.
kidding? Was it really that?
No,
Almost?
really not. You know, this is yacht rock radio.
Yuck.
Yuck. Yuck.
Puke jocks. Puke jocks.
Stop puking. By the way, for the
my
people listening that
goodness.
don't know, puking is a radio term when you hear a
Yes.
DJ.
That's right.
Get on the air. They're looking like this.
Coming up at the top of the hour.
Will.
Oh my goodness.
So funny. But I got to tell you, some of the best memories, and I can say, especially in this room, some of the best friends I've ever made are from radio. Some of the best people I've
Likewise.
ever made. You know, that's why it's awesome to sit here with my two very good dear friends talking about something I love, and that's radio. You know, and just the great experiences that we have. And we won't bring up the bad times, because that's a whole nother podcast, people. Don't get me started.
Well, you know, the time they stole the chicken. See, that just
Can't
wasn't.
have that, chicken stealers.
I'm telling you. Actually, true story. When I was in Minnesota radio back in 90s, back in 90, Rosanna and I first got married. Station I'd worked at my very first gig in 77. So I transitioned there from Charleston, West Virginia, which was a nightmare, but we all have the nightmare gig. Anyway, so bring my lunch to work and it disappears. And this is at a small station. And I end up putting a memo out, which of course nobody ever said anything about. But I said, look, nobody touches my wife or my ham and cheese. Thank you.
Not necessarily in that order.
Yeah. If it's Friday, you know, but I also said, you know, if you're hungry, just ask, but don't leave me hanging here and go, well, where's my ham and cheese? Come on. What's going on? It's like
You know,
you're in radio or
I
something.
look back and at least we never threw turkeys out of helicopters.
Yeah.
There's always that. Wow. WKRP reference.
That's right.
Those that know.
Well, let me ask you something. So, okay, you know, you're still making money with a mic. Do you see yourself, and you just alluded to the fact, you know, what if you went back to radio, but where do you see yourself in the future? Do you see yourself writing things out, you know, with Clear Marketing Concepts?
Yeah. I'd like to retire from CMC
Yeah.
because it changes. Every few years, it's so different. I mean, our people are constantly looking at new things. In fact, you know, you remember how you used to do the demos for Game Time?
Yeah.
That was your bread and butter. Well, now it's AI. Most people don't know that getting these demos. It's an AI voice.
So it's an AI voice? Wow.
But still, somebody has to put it in.
How, is it an AI voice? Like, did they sample your voice, or how does that work?
Interesting. So were working on this, we had a guy that was doing our demos, and we parted ways, and we're like, okay. And so Jim Mosley, who's now kind of running the daily operations, he goes, guys, this is the time we need to go ahead and look at AI. We've talked about it. Let's look into it. So one of our guys, Caleb Muncher, who, by the way, is a very talented local musician. So if you catch Caleb Muncher somewhere, go. I take that. I'm sorry, Caleb. He goes by Caleb Joseph. Kind of like radio people, we go by different names. My real name is Myrtle Johnson. And, somebody once asked me, they said, didn't you used to be Rod Wayne?
So,
and I said, yes, but now I'm Myrtle Johnson.
So on the podcast, do we have to put that in parentheses? Yeah. Rod Wayne.
That's right. So Caleb Joseph produces these, and he went in, and we were working on finding the right voice, and we kept putting it together, and he'd send it to me, and I'd make notes and send back, and I said, we're almost there, but it's not capturing that sound that we want. It just doesn't sound legit. So he realized that what you can do is you actually take a recording of someone and you put that voice on top of their voice. So my voice is kind of the template. So he did that and he sent it back to me, and I listened and said, perfect, that's exactly what I want. Yeah, he's hitting the tones, and that's perfect, good. I like it, it sounds great. He goes, well, it should be, it's on top of your voice. So when they played it for people in the company, what do you think? Everybody said, well, I know that's not Rod's voice, but that's his style and his delivery. And so that's what we use now. So, and I still don't get a royalty check out of it. I mean, a quarter wouldn't hurt. I'm just saying.
Well, I think that it's an opportunity to, especially, there's a lot of discovery phase whenever you're doing demos. I know one of the local TV stations is doing something similar too for their sales team.
Okay.
So that they can go out and then they can have like an AI product to present rather than spending the time required in-house to do the production when there's going to be changes.
It's a great tool.
Yeah. It's a really interesting tool.
Well, you have to stay with the trends. Of course, I go back and I remember editing reel to reel and cutting tape and splicing when I hated it. But I remember carts. Now, I loved carts. For those of you who don't know what carts are, they look like little 8-tracks, and you'd put them in there, and your commercials would run on carts, or music, and you'd go one to another, and you had to remember to rewind them. And anyway, but we started getting into the CDs and the auto changes, and then into computers. And Dave Moreland was brilliant. He got that Scott Studio system, which was touchscreen. And baby, I ain't never looked back since then.
Yeah,
that's good stuff.
I hated production in the tape era because one swipe of the blade, and then you had to start redoing stuff. And
you better hope you had another copy of that tape you just destroyed.
Yeah, having some sort of basic digital cutter on your computer is just priceless. It really is, especially if it's free. Mine is freeware.
Just stay with the technology and use it to your advantage. It doesn't always have to replace things unless it's good that it does. I think voice tracking is wonderful. It is great when it's used the right way. But when you have your people go in and voice track an entire shift and they're not there live, even when they're still in the building, I think that's a grave mistake.
Yeah.
And I get they may be wearing several hats. But let me tell you what, be live, be on the air, and be local. We used to push that, live, local, and all that stuff. We need to go back to that. Because it's another reason I don't even watch, local TV. Because everything's canned from ABC, CBS, or NBC.
It's kind of interesting. You'll see things on TV stations where it's probably like a midday news block, and all of a sudden you'll see something, and I'll go, okay, it's not their regular people. Right. People are, whether they're men or women, are way too pretty for this market. And you're going, yeah.
What are you trying to say, man? I don't. I got a good face for radio.
I resemble that remark.
Did not mean to insult anybody in the room. Rod.
That's all right. My lawyer will be calling your lawyer. Don't worry later on.
Oh, they don't want to tangle with Rosanna.
That's true. That is your lawyer. Well, Golda is my lawyer, and Golda likes Rosanna, so I think we're good.
Yes. No. But you know what? And that's, it's like you said, we all come to a part in our life. It's like myself. I wouldn't have thought that I would be in a newsroom and actually enjoy it.
You sound great, by the way.
And I've told any of you, news can be fun, which, I wouldn't have thought that, but to me, it tickles the same impulses that I had as a music director, as far as putting things together, looking things vertically, and going, do these things stack up? And I work for a man that I don't think is going to retire anytime soon, and hopefully I get to retire at KTBB. That's what I'm looking forward to.
That would be nice. And of course, the future, we never know what's going to happen. I always wonder down the road what I'll do next. What will I do when my voice begins to fade out? Because I've heard some amazing voices that I grew up with, and then you hear them when they're much older, and they're more,
Seasoned?
gravelly. Well, seasoned, and then sometimes it's too much seasoning. You hear the point where it's about time to retire, maybe teach. And I often feel I may get that way.
Yeah, but not right now. Not right now at
hopefully
all.
not.
You have no gravel in your voice. Certainly you don't, Mandy.
There's more. Yeah, you don't.
I mean, my gosh, I have T-shirts older than you at home.
Oh, my.
Well, so do I, but that's just because I shop at Goodwill.
Me too. Had any of you seen the Billy Joel concert that was on CBS?
No, but I saw the video where they de-aged him. That was cool.
Did what?
Oh, yeah, they did a video, and in it, they were going through his life, because the song is kind of about his life and how he's changed.
Oh.
And they went in and de-aged him to the different
de-aged
points
him.
in his life. So, like, he was younger here, then a little bit older here, and a little bit older than modern day. And that was
Interesting.
cool. Yeah.
The point that I wanted to make is that, Billy Joel is, I think he's 75 now, and his voice sounds fantastic.
It does.
It's very, elastic. It's young sounding. And when you see his concert and hear it, it's not like there's background singers shadowing him. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I've seen it.
Yeah. And
I've been backstage watched it happen. It's the weirdest thing.
well, it's sad. I mean, I remember there was an artist he was an hit maker in the 80s. It was Earl Thomas Conley. He was just great, but he was doing a Tyler gig probably maybe early to mid 90s. And we were pretty excited about it. Rosanna and I were there at the Oil Palace, and it was really obvious that, he had throat issues, he was struggling, and the band was, backing him up and shadowing the best that he could. But it was like, oh, man, no, we're going to hope you retire real soon,
Well, and AI, so we all know what happened to Randy Travis, country legend, and then, of course, he had the stroke and couldn't sing anymore. They have a brand new album they've just put out, and they've used AI. So they have a singer that's singing in the style of Randy Travis, and then they used AI, and you cannot tell. It is incredible. It sounds like Randy Travis, if he had not had these health issues, how he would be singing today. And to watch the video, he is just so excited that this is being done. It's now that is how you use AI. And again, it's a tool. It's not evil. It's a tool. Use it the right way. I think that's a great way. Now, my thing is, I want them to bring John Wayne back in AI to make movies, but only if they do it right.
Well, how would that be? How would John Wayne be in the movies today?
You'd have to do westerns.
You have to do
unless you do
westerns?
World War II stuff,
Okay.
But you'd have to be
Okay.
true to how Bat Jack Productions did the movies back in the day.
God, what if they had him and Costner on the screen together?
Oh, that would be good. Talk about gravelly voice. Kevin Costner's voice got gravelly over the year.
It's,
I could see him showing up at Yellowstone Ranch to save the day. Kevin Costner's character's in trouble. Here comes his horse. It's the Duke. You bet your sweet bippy, Pilgrim. It takes you out of reality, doesn't it? But yeah, there you go.
Oh, man.
Save the day.
so, do you think that we're all under agreement here in the round table, here in the studio, that probably if we have our choice, that we make our money with a microphone? Rod, what do you think?
Yeah, because like I said, I have a good face for radio, so it's fun. It's just I like talking to people, and in this way, you're talking to people, and you get paid to do it.
It's such a challenge, too. I mean, whatever you're given, it's always, how do I make this better? It's, when I do the Drive at 5 at KTBB, I always bring the news person on. And basically my job is time temp and a weather check. And I always approach it on, how do I make this one a little bit different than the other one? And that's always, kind of a challenge. And that's always kind of in my mind. Plus, working with news stories, Paul Gleiser's basic rule is, do we care about this story? And, you listen to it. I listen to it and go, yes, no, no, and then move on. So, and that's the music director in me that speaks. I'm hoping to hang around for a long time.
We hope you do too.
Well, I'm loving the podcasting space.
This is cool.
Yeah, this
I'm
is
so
fun.
proud of
But
you.
also you're doing TV, too.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
But
She's so modest.
it's more than us.
Well,
Well, because she has a good face for
For
TV.
TV, yeah.
thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. No, I similar to you, Rod. My mom says I came into this world talking and just never shut up. So, yes, I, in some form or fashion, intend to continue making money with my mouth.
You should.
That sounded really bad.
Broadcasting,
Making
yeah.
money with a mic.
Okay, we're going to edit here and here.
I'm not even going to say anything to that remark right there.
You know, in the other space that I've been sort of living in, we've all talked about in the radio space, you don't do it for the money, right? It's like teaching. So most of us have side gigs. Yeah. I started network marketing, doing supplementation because it blessed my life and I wanted to bless others with it. That transitioned me out of full-time radio. And so what I do in that space is not really with a microphone unless you consider the telephone a microphone, right, or sending voice memos to people. So I use my voice a lot. It just looks it's completely conversational and very personal. So it's interesting because I'm still doing what I do, but with sort of a slightly different purpose. I'm not broadcasting, but it's more one-on-one.
But it's like when you do your videos and stuff. I've seen them. I think I told you a year and a half ago, you need to do something, whatever, because I thought that you communicated really, really well.
I had really good mentors and people around me to learn from. And I think one of the things that sharpens you in radio as far as communication, especially today, is how concise you have to be and clear. Because oftentimes, especially when I was working with mix, I had 7 seconds to deliver something that was informative, mildly entertaining, and, happy, upbeat,
sure,
moving things forward. And that can be a real challenge. Most people can't do that. It's a skill. You can learn it, but it's not something that most people have naturally.
It's something where you sit there and go, this is my time frame. This is what I'm going to say.
And I'm going to hit the post.
Yeah, I'm going to hit the post. And I can hit the post. And as you're talking, you're doing the math in your head and going, okay, I'm going to take just a tiny breath, do this. And here's the network guy or whatever.
And I have had to do that in TV because what I'm doing in TV is a freelance, it's a freelance job, essentially. So I'm not like employed by any of the television stations, but it's a 2-minute interview. So we learned those skills doing live remotes where we'd be on location. We had 1 minute to have a conversation with someone and wrap it up.
You had a stopwatch.
Right. Well, in TV, I don't have a stopwatch, but I have 2 minutes and I have a producer that's giving me hand signals to know where I am. But because I had those skills from being in radio to know how to stretch something out, or to make something really quick, right? Like with my voice, I have that skill set in TV. And then I had a speaking engagement recently, and I had 12 to 15 minutes, and I said, "You tell me how long I have, and
that's
I can."
An eternity.
I was like, I can make it whatever time you need it to be, as long as there's a clock in front of me. And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Guarantee you, I will never go over time if there's a clock in front of me." And they just were like in awe. And I was like, "You don't understand. I've had to speak to time since I was 18 years old." It's a skill.
Sure.
And you just don't mess that up.
As long as you're prepped,
Well, yes.
Sure. You have your notes.
Yeah.
Cut it short or stretch it out if you
So
have to.
the long answer to that is yes.
Yes. Okay. So do you have any more? Hey, my question, it's our final question to you, our studio host.
Yeah.
Do you have any more coffee around here? This has been another episode of The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandy Montana.
And I'm Chuck McKinley.
This is our show to explore radio,
podcasting,
gear,
and the gearheads that use the gear,
and making money with a hot mic,
and other stuff in between.
We'd love for you to follow us on social media as well. Follow us on Facebook at The Unknown Morning Show and Instagram at The Unknown Morning Show. See us on YouTube at The Unknown Morning Show.
Thank you for listening to The Unknown Morning Show.
I'm Mandy Montana.
I'm Chuck McKinley. And remember, be kind and rewind.